joining us. Thanks everyone for joining us and logging on right on time here. We're going to give it a minute or two to let everybody log on and get started. But thank you for taking some time out of your day. We'll get going shortly. So we'll just give it about one more minute here, and just in the interest of everybody's time, be respectful of everyone joining us. Make sure that we get everyone to log on before we get going, but we'll get going shortly. All right, thank you everyone for joining us today for our workforce panel for Merrimack Valley and regional manufacturers. We appreciate you taking the time and hope that you can have some helpful answers to your workforce challenges here today. To begin, I'm going to hand it over to the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission's Executive Director, Gerard Whitten.
Great, thanks, Ian, and a warm good afternoon to everyone. Really thank you for joining us today. As Ian said, welcome to Merrimack Valley Planning Commission's panel discussion for manufacturers. My name is Gerard Whitten, and I am the Executive Director with the Commission. And I have the distinct pleasure of kicking off today's session, which is focused on recruitment and retention of workers here in the Merrimack Valley. For those of you who aren't familiar with our agency, MVPC is one of 13 regional planning agencies across the state of Massachusetts, and we serve the 15 cities of towns here in the northeastern corner of the state. We were created through an act of the state government more than 60 years ago with a mission of promoting the economy and the orderly growth of this region. And that mission is carried out through our 4 programs, which include our transportation program, environmental program, we have an information technology and GIS mapping program, and our community and economic development program. Our targeted economic development strategy, which you'll hear more about just shortly, is one of the areas of focus within our community and economic development program, and today represents the first in a series of workshops sponsored by that program. The information that we plan to share with you today has been made possible through the support and collaboration of our state and local partners, and today's discussion is designed around the goal of trying to assist you, businesses of this great region that we call home. With that background, I'm pleased to introduce the first member of our team today, and that's Nate Robertson, who heads up our community and economic development program. Nate.
Awesome. Thanks, Gerard. And thank you so much to our panelists and everybody participating and attending today. Super happy to see this, this program kind of hitting the ground running. I am the Community and Economic Development Planner here at MVPC. And, you know, we serve in this really important role where we get together 15 communities and we have them work collaboratively on common issues, aligning vision and aligning resources around problems that the whole region experiences. We know that the economy does not stop at municipal boundaries. So it's really important to get folks together, both in the private and the public side, to talk about common issues. And one of these issues that has just emerged, you know, before COVID, but has only been made worse during COVID is workforce development, both retaining workers, attracting workers, and that has been permeating across all issues, from the coffee shop down the street to large manufacturers. We know that our large manufacturing sector here in the Merrimack Valley is a huge generator of wealth and jobs in our region. So we really work proactively with our communities to make sure that we have working relationships with companies in our own backyards, and that we are doing everything we can to make sure that those companies and those industries have the resources that they need and the connections in the state and the localities needed to stay here, grow here, and thrive here. So I want to kick it over to Ian Burns, who's really the driving force behind this targeted outreach effort and retention effort, and is going to be emceeing us through this workforce webinar. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nate. So before we get started, just a brief overview of what we can expect today for folks that maybe haven't joined a webinar before or want to know how we're going to be running things today. So this webinar is recorded and will be available for public access after the event. So you'll be able to rewatch if you missed some information and want to go back, or share with your colleagues with information they might find helpful. All the attendees at this event are hidden and muted from public view. The only folks that can be seen or heard are the panelists, who are the 9 of us up on your screen right now. To ask a question at any time during this webinar, you'll see on your toolbar on the bottom of your Zoom screen, you have a little Q&A box that has a chat box symbol. You can click on that Q&A box and type in a question at any time. Only the panelists on this side of the screen will see your questions, and we will answer them as they come up. And you can ask them anonymously if you choose to do so. So a little bit of what to expect today for our agenda. So we just had a welcome from our MVPC staff. Shortly, we're going to introduce our main panelists for the event. We're going to have a moderated panel discussion to answer some key questions and common questions we hear about workforce challenges in the region. During this panel discussion, you can feel free to type in questions while we're talking, and we will respond to some of those questions as they come up during that discussion, some of those quicker response questions. But then after we have the moderated panel discussion, we will have dedicated time for plenty of question and answers. And at this time, you can feel free to ask any questions that either relate to the topics we covered during the moderated panel, or topics that we didn't cover that you really want to hear about, and really pick the brain of the experts that we have here to talk about those workforce challenges. After that dedicated Q&A time, we're going to have just some brief introductions from additional regional partners and partner organizations, resources for you all here in the region and across the state that can help you with your business challenges. So with that, we're going to introduce our panel today. We have Brian Norris, who's the Executive Director of MassHire, Jonathan Isaacson, the CEO of the GEM Group, a manufacturer in Lawrence, and Walter Mena, who's the Staff Director and Lead Organizer at the Merrimack Valley Project, a community organizing nonprofit based out of Lawrence and Lowell. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see everybody's faces during this portion of the event. And before we get into the panel discussion, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, the organization that they work for, and a little bit about what they do in the region in regards to workforce. So I'm going to kick it off and hand it over to Brian Norris from MassHire.
Thank you, Ian. My name is Brian Norris. I'm the Executive Director of MassHire Merrimack Valley Workforce Board. If you don't know what these are, the workforce boards are, we're going to tell you about that today. There are 14 regional workforce boards in the state of Massachusetts. In the region covered by Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, the 15 towns are the same towns that we serve through MassHire Merrimack Valley. I've only been in this job since January, and so it's only since January that I've discovered that there are more things in life than manufacturing and the Red Sox. So I have to worry now about healthcare and IT and other stuff. But before I came on board at the Workforce Board, I worked for the Northeast Advanced Manufacturing Consortium, which was a partnership among 4 workforce boards in this Northeast region of the state. And our mission was to find out what you need in terms of entry-level skills and higher level skills, and then establish and fund training programs to get people ready to work for you. So more on that later. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I'll hand it over to Jonathan to introduce himself.
Sorry, I needed to unmute there. Jonathan Isaacson. I am the CEO of the GEM Group. We're, I think, one of the larger employers here in Lawrence. We're in the promotional and branded merchandise business. We're one of the largest in the country. At this point in time, we're growing extremely rapidly. Hiring and retaining talent is a critical part of our growth strategy. And we're very involved as a company in the community in Lawrence and have been since we moved here in the 1990s.
Thank you, Jonathan. And last but not least, Walter from the Merrimack Valley Project. And you're muted, Walter. So.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Walter Mena. I representing Merrimack Valley Project, who is a nonprofit that organize and unite religious, labor, and community organizations to help them to expand opportunities and good jobs, affordable housing, immigration, and economic rights through, of course, community organizing and leadership skill in the community. We do our work in all the Merrimack Valley area, but our office and focus is in the area of Lawrence. So right now, and thank you for the invitation, I feel representing the leaders and pastor of the Merrimack Valley Network and other workers organization now and bring the voice of the community, especially the immigrant community and the second and third generation in Lawrence. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Walter. And thank you to all of our panelists. I know that we're really excited to have three different perspectives on our panel today, really bringing the perspective of leader of a local business and manufacturer. We have Walter bringing that community perspective of the boots on the ground perspective of things, and Brian from MassHire bringing the state perspective. So we have multiple different views on this workforce topic. So for all of our attendees here, feel free to ask any of them questions as we go throughout the event. To get us started here with one of our first questions, this is going to be really for any of our panelists to answer, and it's really top of everyone's mind right now as we're kind of in this long tail coming out of COVID, is asking, do our panelists think that these workforce issues, are they temporary or something that will continue to be a major challenge for employers going forward? Do we have a sense yet of those ending pandemic unemployment benefits, if that's going to have a major impact on the workforce, or what we can expect going forward? So I'd like to hand that off to our panelists to answer that question. If any of you have some thoughts on that, please feel free to speak up.
I'm happy to jump in first. If anybody else wants to, then just raise your hand and I'll let you. Brian, do you want to go first? Okay, so for me personally, I think this is a structural issue that right now it is a seller's market for labor, for personnel. I think it's going to maintain that way for a long time. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, which it's probably beyond the purview of this, but some of them are just a shrinking workforce that's not being replenished like it was before. And you had an enormous amount of women who have dropped out of the workplace as a result of COVID. And so this is a big reset time. We'll see what happens, but I think we're going to be dealing with this for a while.
Thank you, Jonathan. I would add that I agree with everything Jonathan said, but also that in particular, it's not a new problem. There are definitely some conditions that are particular and peculiar to the pandemic, but the workforce skills shortage has been a long time in the making. That's why the Northeast Advanced Manufacturing Consortium was founded in 2013, specifically to answer the calls from precision machining companies and electronics companies and metal fashioning companies. A lack of skilled labor. But I can go even further back. In 1980, I was running a small manufacturing company right here in Lawrence. We couldn't find labor. And so the problem goes really deep. The tech schools abandoned advanced manufacturing training many years ago. I'm happy to say they've all re-embraced that and are spending millions of dollars re-equipping. The community colleges in the region have not embraced manufacturing. They are starting to do that. So we're starting to repair what I would call the pipeline, the basic fundamental training that's necessary to get people into manufacturing. But we now face a problem of image and branding marketing, where we have more training slots than we have people to fill them. And so we need to get more creative in attracting new people who might not have thought of manufacturing in the past. Get them in and show them what a great career opportunity awaits them.
Let me add to that. I totally agree with Jonathan and Brian. And let me add from the perspective of the people in Lawrence, from the workers in the immigrant community, I would say that is of course, structural, so many different structural situations. But also I would say that start to put it on the table of those challenges that immigration status of the workers offer. And there is I would say under work dimension of workers that work without documents and people who work with documents. And for the other side, also part of the structural things is cultural approaches that missing in this connection with the employees, and also language, of course, and for the workforce that are in the age to work, and support in the schools and others institutions for the new generation to hit the direction of what is the manufacturers are open. And of course, a skilled training. And I would say we see right now after the pandemic, just the tip of the iceberg, I would say, that we're looking at. And I expected that in the community, there is more impact of that. And the last thing is, I think all the job offers has to impact socially in the community. And I think this is a challenging for employees and employers, right? So I think that's structural, but the pandemic worsened all those also.
That's great. Thanks for your perspectives on that. And Brian, I just wanted to go back to one of the things you were mentioning about repairing that pipeline and getting that workforce training going forward. Can you give us a little bit of insight as to what workforce training programs MassHire has to offer for employers, and what kind of programs that employers can sign up for or partner with MassHire on to increase their pipeline of workers coming in?
Sure. So at MassHire, we focus on the two portions of the problem, which are pipeline, or bringing people in, and then also incumbent training. So we have programs for both. For the pipeline, we are training throughout the region, the Northeast region, not just Merrimack Valley, but through NAMC, somewhere between 75 and 100 unemployed or underemployed people a year in what we call foundational manufacturing training. And foundational, it's about a 400-hour training program that we have. So people are learning the basic skills, measurements, reading blueprints, inspection, following procedures, recipes, so that while the trainings are in general are focused on or centered on precision machining or electronics or robotics, the set of fundamental skills that we teach are valued across industrial sectors. So we are turning out, again, 75 to 100 people a year. I think in the neighborhood of 80% of those are going on to jobs in manufacturing. They're getting paid a wage on average of lately $20 an hour. So that's another problem that manufacturers are starting to address. The wages, they're starting to pay higher wages. In addition to the pipeline training, there's two other key training programs that manufacturers need to understand. One is apprenticeships, where we can help you develop, and in some cases fund, apprenticeship training for specific occupations that you require. And this can take an entry-level worker up a level. It can take, apprenticeship can take a a mid-level worker to a high-level worker, we would work directly with you to determine what your needs are, to find the occupation, find the funding, find the trainers, and get your people trained up. And then third, and one probably most of the people who are smart enough to be on this call probably have heard of the Workforce Training Fund, but it's a fantastic program offered by the state where you can get up to $250,000 a year to train your workforce, your entire workforce, in the variety of skills and occupations that are important to help you grow. So MassHire can help you pipeline, registered apprentice, and applying for workforce training funds. Beyond that, you should just list your jobs with MassHire for free. When we find an applicant who's looking for a job and their resume has skills matches with your needs, you'll get a call from us. And we'll try to set up an interview. So learn who your local MassHire Career Center people are and register with them.
Thanks, Brian. I just added a link in the chat for the MassHire website for folks that might have heard programs there that they're interested in. Feel free to go to that website, and I'm sure Brian will have his contact information available after if you want to reach out to him for more information. But that website has all the programs that he just mentioned available to manufacturers. Going back to that first question we asked, and I think Jonathan and Walter both touched a little bit on company culture for employees and attracting them there. So Jonathan, I'd like to direct a question at you. If you could talk a little bit about what you do to make your company a place where people want to work, where hiring can happen through word of mouth in the city because of the culture that's there. You know, for example, I know that your operations are fully bilingual. You know, what does that impact have on your operations, and how does that benefit your retention and recruitment?
Well, it's true that our operations are fully bilingual, and we work in a lot of countries around the world. So frankly, we're multilingual and we're multicultural, and we've always been that way. And essentially, it's about meeting people where they are. And what we're especially good at and proud of at GEM is our ability to upskill people. So Brian talked about some of the skilled manufacturing jobs. There's a variety of jobs where you have training on the job, and we provide training, we provide opportunity, and we provide a comfortable and safe environment for the people who work here that is wrapped around this idea that we call respect for people. It's out of lean manufacturing, but it has to do with training people and getting the most out of people and getting people to feel empowered. And a couple of things, if when you, as a senior manager or a CEO or whatever the job is, if you have a plant and you're walking around, and the plant can be the floor of a supermarket, or the plant could be a manufacturing plant, if people aren't looking you in the eye, smiling and saying good morning or good afternoon, you have a cultural problem. And today, in a seller's market where Amazon is moving in, if you don't have that, you're going to be at risk of losing people to Amazon as they move in. And that's going to be a significant issue for some manufacturers in the Valley. In Asia, we talked about the fact that happy people make happy products, and this goes all the way up the supply chain. And happy people now keep businesses operating, because if you don't have a happy environment today, you're not going to get people in. So the cultural pieces, meeting people where they are, providing upskilling and training of people, and treating people not like resources, but like people with backstories and hopes and dreams and families. That's the critical part that is today. And it's a part that's often overlooked for other pieces, but the lack of that will make people go, those who are the best especially, go look and find it somewhere else, especially in a seller's market.
Yeah, and so on that note, Walter, if you have any follow-up on that, and especially, you know, how can, from your perspective, employers best accommodate an immigrant workforce or an English learning workforce into their operations?
Yes, I just wanted to call, there is a quote that usually is frequently used at the business world. I've been listening to that, is the customer is first, right? And I would say that in this kind of conversation, I would say has Jonathan really pointed is that the employees are first, because happy employees make a happy business, and of course a good service to the customers. And I would say that's what that means is a really challenging question for employers. But I would say whatever we do, we listen from Jonathan, has to impact the policy and the culture of the business, right? To open up spaces for meet the people where they are. And meet the people where they are, I would say, is a really important thing to understand. That is cultural approaches and language approaches, and become part of the culture of the business, and also a policy that has to change. And I would add here that that's a very concrete steps are included in the training of managers and people of those cultural skills inclusions, right? I think it's important for business to understand that, and it's an investment to improve their business.
Well, there's another piece to what Walter is saying that I just want to add, because I'm in complete agreement with him, which is also, what do the managers and supervisors look like? So we all talk about DEI, and we get young people coming in and asking us, do we have a DEI statement? What does that look like? But what do the managers and supervisors look like who work there also? And if they don't look like me, whoever me is, then it's going to be problematic, frankly, over time. So part of what we're most proud of at GEM, because we do look at all of our stakeholders, our customers, and our employees in all of this, as Walter spoke about, is a path for people to grow. And so we have people who started with us who didn't speak a word of English when they came to us. Now they're fluent, and they're running 70 people on 2 shifts. And they understand the challenges that other people have. They understand the culture. They speak the language. Other people look at them as role models. And we're doing a number of things, I think, that Brian talked about also, or somebody else talked about, which is we want to improve the economic impact in the community as a whole. And this is about getting people to learn as adults, and learning to learn in some cases as adults. And people see that and they want to be a part of that. And there is a good feeling, I don't even know how to describe it, that comes from empowerment that makes people look up. I mean, the signal is, do they look up, look you in the eye and say, good morning, good afternoon? And do they call the CEO by name? Do they feel comfortable in their environment and addressing them? Do they know who you are, not just some disembodied person out there? And these are the cultural elements that are going to make the difference of whether people want to work in your company today.
Yeah, thanks for that perspective. And on that note of attracting those workers that Walter, I think, was touching on at first, what do our panelists have a sense on the more non-traditional ways, I guess I would say, that prospective employees look for and hear about jobs? Aside of just posting a job online or attending a regular job fair, what are the other ways to be connecting employers with employees and employees with employers? So maybe, Walter, you might have perspective on how residents of the community most often hear about jobs. We'd love to hear that. And then Jonathan and Brian, how you're seeing other employers' recruiting strategies, what works best for them?
Thank you. Yeah, I would say for me, I want to highlight that this dimension of meet the people where they are, that I want to use that quote from Jonathan, is a really big piece of the big dimension of different direction. And looking ahead to communication and media, I think the base of this is thinking about where is the people, how the people communicate. And I would say in Lawrence, I've been talking and asking before that how the people get hired and looking for a job. And of course, it's word of mouth. That's the general thing. And by related, in the culture of Latino culture, it's a very related family address, So we trust our friends, we trust the community, the faces that we know, And I think a face that is familiar to me, that I can ask anything, and I can trust what they said. Saying that is also take in consideration how the community use the social media, and how the computer literacy is among the community. And because Jonathan also talked about a space to grow, right? If you're expecting in a policy and culture of the business to meet a skillful worker, so you're going to take time to develop those workers. And this is also connected with impact in the social environment of the community. So that the business has to think and connect all those dots. And finally, I will say is some organizations, community organizations, churches that's connected with pastors and the churches to be, because they are the voice every weekend that they can address and direct and instruct the community about work and whatever other issues are. So I would say looking for community centers, people who teach English as a second language, libraries, and other things are, but especially also thinking about what's up. In Lawrence, everything that the media in middle age, I would say, happened is by WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a big way to communicate between the community and everything that happened.
So really going through those trusted community partners where folks are hearing from maybe their religious institution or the local library or the community embedded organization seem to be key in connecting, from what you're saying, Walter, and what we're taking away, and the trusted figures in the community, connecting those with the employees to the employers. Jonathan and Brian, I wanted to give you a chance to hop in on this topic as well as maybe non-traditional ways or outside of the box for reaching out to employees.
Well, I'll jump in first. So get connected. You've got technical high schools in the region who are trying to find co-op jobs for their juniors and seniors. Get to know those people. Hire those people as co-ops. Get connected to your community college. If you need to run a specialized course through, say, even funded by the Workforce Training Fund, the community colleges can help you design and deliver that training. Get connected above all to the Career Center, become a member, and then you will be invited to job fairs. You will be invited to things like this. Get connected to Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, because we're all out here trying to do the same thing. We're trying to match your needs with what the community needs, basically. But also remember that we're not just competing against each other in manufacturing nowadays. I remember a time when poaching among manufacturers was a way of life. GE would hire anybody who celebrated their second anniversary at a machine shop and that was a supplier. We got to stop that poaching and start bringing more people in. I think a big giant opportunity, and Walter talked about this a little bit, is reaching, and Jonathan talked about it a lot, is reaching the people who don't speak English. A lot of them might have very high skills that you could use immediately if you could communicate. But again, the MassHire, can help connect you with all of these players, all of which are trying to do the same thing, which is to increase the pipeline and help you build skills among your incumbent workers.
I don't have much to add in terms of what Walter and Brian said. They've hit all the key points in terms of what you need to do to get people in. The things that we're talking about, it's the same for a lot of different types of businesses, and people are going to naturally go where they feel the most comfortable and they think they have the greatest opportunity and can provide the most for their families. So, the question is, you look in the mirror and you say, is that me? Is that us? And if not, how do I get there? The only slightly different take I might say from somebody who's been there doing something else, not in the community, and it's been a long time since we've been involved in the community, but you have to get involved in the community. If the business community is separate from the rest of the community, it's a problem. And this is where our team members live, where they work, where they raise their families. And so they have to feel like the business community is involved, because if they're worried about what's going on at home, they aren't going to be focused at work, and you're not going to be able to hire these people. And by getting involved, people are going to know who you are, and you're going to make yourself a more attractive employer because they know that you're community focused. And that is important today to people. They want to know that their companies are community focused. So it's the same thing as Walter and Brian said, with a slightly different take from somebody who's hiring people today, as Brian used to do.
Let me add to this, because the focus of Brian and what you say, Jonathan, is I think in the community, when you don't speak the language, when you don't speak English, that doesn't mean just don't speak English. It's you don't understand things. You are new in the community, and you don't understand how to drive, how to move, where is you go. And this is, I think, and the dynamic the cities has Lawrence has a combination of people who are second generation, of people who are has been here for more time, but new people is arriving and moving the community, looking for jobs. And it's a different perspective of immigrant that just arrived, between the challenges to live here and have the status on immigration, that's one thing. But how to approach to the society here, and how we can, I think how the employees and this business projection can get and oriented the new immigrants. That is a big impact in the community, and I think it's a big role of everybody in that. At Merrimack Valley Project, and that we do organizing, is a big part of the leadership skills. Try to send and train people just in the way you are in a new land, you are part of this community, you need to belong here and work here and make your life here. And I think the business and the work is a big part of the immigrant community. Started to understand how things going on, even and challenge themselves and challenge the society about this.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think a lot of what we hear from other successful companies as well is really selling that story of that employee that has, like Jonathan said, came in maybe not speaking English at all and climbed the ranks of now being maybe a floor supervisor or manager, or whatever in their development as an employee. We've seen a lot of successful companies marketing those stories, more of just saying we're hiring a position, but here's a story of someone with us that has been this successful because of XYZ, and selling that story of the employee. We've heard from, I think, multiple companies that has been successful more than just saying, here's a job.
Ian, can I change something in terms of the way that you described that?
Please.
You're not developing somebody as an employee, you're developing them as a human. And it's a really important view on this in terms of who and what they are. And that makes a big difference in terms of how you approach it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you look at it that way, because it's not just, you're not training a robot. You're training, it's what I talked about is all the hopes and dreams and the backstory, and sitting down and, joking with them or doing whatever you do that makes them feel like they're noticed. And dignity is a really powerful word in almost every culture. The whole dignity issue is a really critical issue. It's no different in Lawrence as it is in anywhere, around the world. And so providing some dignity around work and some humanity to it, so that I'm not just a piece of a cog that goes unnoticed. And so that whole, do I look up? Do I say your name? Do I make eye contact? Do I say good morning in the hallway? All these things that happen that let people know that I belong to a community here and that I'm being developed as a human being. And it's a organizational thing, it's a community thing, it's a country thing. There's so much divisiveness in the country. This is I know it sounds kind of corny, but it's in a way bridging these divides and bringing people together. And some of you may have noticed, I don't exactly look like a lot of people in the community, but somehow I think I've managed to bridge the divide with people because they can smell a lack of authenticity a million miles away. And so literally it's the little things that happen every day in the organization. And if you don't have it now, you have to be prepared for the long march. So you don't suddenly say, good morning, Walter, good morning, Brian, good morning, Ian, and everybody's happy. It's the accumulation of things that happen over time, and that people know that there's a direction that includes them as human beings.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder, Jonathan. I think that's a really important perspective and good tweaking to the statement that I made from what we're hearing from folks. And on that note, and a little bit more specific too, I know that you touched upon it a little bit earlier when you were answering a question. We've heard some feedback of folks wondering about, what outside of general culture, what kind of benefits, what kind of programs are going to be attracting and retaining workers, specifically, what's most successful in that. And I'm sure Walter has a perspective too, from the residents' perspective, of what they look for if they're looking for certain benefit programs. Jonathan, do you have an idea about Gemline, what's most successful for you all?
It's a combination of things. So I've always believed that healthcare is a human right. So we've always, before the mandates, we've always had things like healthcare and disability. And there is, again, you go back to that humanness. People have a crisis in their family, and you deal with it as an individual and on a human level, not just a policy level, which is pretty easy for most companies of the size we're talking about here in Lawrence. One of the things that we do is we have a fair amount of predictability in terms of schedules. So we're not moving people back and forth because they have lives to plan. They may have kids, they may have a spouse, they may have a mother that has an elder care issue that they need to, take care of, and they need to make sure that that's there. So we give people planning time. And there is a benefits package that includes a lot of different stuff in it. And what's important to people is going to change over time. We have run 4 vaccination clinics on site. We're close to 92% vaccinated at this point in time. And we're going to run more of those. And when I walked around and talked to people individually and talked about what my wife and my kids had done in terms of vaccination, working very hard not to make people feel like their concerns were not legitimate, but trying to explain what the real situation was. People listened. We treated them as human beings. And I think in the end, I'm sure there were some people who were annoyed with me for being so interested in vaccinations, but I viewed it as important for the community. And we got we're about, in a couple of weeks, we'll be about at 92%. We're going to run another clinic in a few weeks, and we run flu shot clinics and stuff like that. That's free. Doesn't cost anybody anything to have a vaccination clinic. There are organizations in town who will do that for you, and it's powerful. And not just because there's a mandate. If they believe that you're doing it because you care about them, it changes the narrative in terms of who you are as an employer, or adds to the narrative potentially. It's probably a better way of saying it.
Thanks, Jonathan.
And can I just give a shout out to the Greater Lawrence Family Health Center for doing, they are a spectacular organization. They have done a terrific job running the clinics on site and providing education to people and doing it in the language that they're comfortable with, which is both English and Spanish. They've really got a lot of people across the finish line in terms of, I had a guy come up to me last week, show me his second shot vaccine card. I didn't ask him, and we high-fived in the hallway. And it's just that kind of stuff where, that was a good day for me, because it's somebody else whose family is going to be safe, and, he had enough trust in us. And so sometimes it just comes down to building trust between, the management team and the people who work there. It is a really important thing, trust and dignity.
Thank you. And I'm glad to hear those success stories of vaccination. I know that's huge in this time. And Walter, I want to give you a chance to comment on this. I just wanted to say, we're going to get to question and answers just after this, because we want to hear what you all are wanting to listen to on from the attendees' perspective. So Walter, if you have any quick follow-up on that, and then we'll get to some question and answers from the audience.
Again, I totally agree with Jonathan's view. Is human dignity, take in consideration that we have humans working for you. That's really changing view and changing everything, and making sure that those views touch concrete steps in the policy and the culture of the business. I think that's important. What the people look for benefits, I just want to remark that, of course, family is important. Health is important because we're thinking about our families. And also, I always, one thing that in community organizing, one question that we do in community organizing is how we can build the power of the community, and I think that question could be applied to the business. How can you build the power of the employees, right? How you can develop them in a different, human develop, economic develop. So I think this is a very recycling, we call, because this is you're making impact in the community. And one important thing that I want just to put here is that minimum wage for perspective of the community and lifestyle is just the bottom of the start talking about how you pay the employers, right? And I know it's business, profit, and other thing, but taking in consideration that all the view, the dignity, the human dignity, all the policy, all the inclusion make really effect to work about the pay that the employers get. And don't forget that it's just the economic is big part of that, but human develop is beside hand by hand.
Brian, go ahead. I know that you just had a thought. We have some questions coming in, but give us your thoughts.
Yeah, just quick. I want to add to the thoughts of Jonathan and Walter on this. Training itself, when you offer an employee training, you're investing in that person, and that helps with retention. That helps with morale. And I can see it through my career when we sit down with someone and said, we want to train you in X so that you can advance in this company. That creates loyalty, creates pride, and it helps keep that worker, and it gets them to move up beyond that minimum wage. So embrace training in the workplace and reach out to all the sources here that can help you develop those training programs.
So can I just add this thing about minimum wage? Because I think we can take minimum wage and throw it out the window in some ways, because the minimum wage is going to get set by the big distribution companies. If you're near an Amazon, a Chewy, a Walmart distribution center, they're going to set your minimum wage, not the state anymore. And so you're going to be attracting people with a better environment than them, and they're going to set the wage. And for those who are below that wage, you're going to be unhappy. And the only way to make this work economically, because without a profit, there is no business, is to upskill people. And so I know it's going to sound like, we're describing Oz here, treat people like this, we run a business and we're interested in making money, but a core part of that is by developing the talent to be able to do that. So there's all these linkages that go together, and productivity, driving productivity means giving people the skills to be more productive. And we always tell people, take the training. It's whatever happens to you in life, that's with you forever. Sometimes you have to convince people to take the training, because don't think that it's you're going to put this up and all of a sudden everybody's going to come singing to work like in some Disney movie. But this is really hard work to create a culture that works, but all the pieces go together. The reality is there's forces outside all of our controls. So if you don't control what's in your business, you're going to get eaten alive by these secular changes that are going on in the economy. Training equals productivity improvements. Productivity improvements allows you to pay people more and make a bigger profit. They're all linked together.
Great. Thank you for those perspectives. And I want to get a chance to go over to some of the questions we have in the Q&A box. And like I said, feel free to type anything in on the bottom of your Zoom screen on the toolbar there. You should have a Q&A function. Feel free to click that and type in anything that you're wondering about. We did have a question come in. Maybe Brian has a perspective on this, or others on the panel here, about encouraging students to be going into manufacturing. How can we get that pipeline started young, and not just now when we're recruiting within the manufacturing companies, but just recruiting in the schooling to begin with? Do we have any thoughts on getting students and young people into the career now?
So that's a really interesting question about the tech schools and getting people into them. And in my lifetime, I've seen a complete change in the way tech schools have not only operated, but who they serve. When I was in high school, the comprehensive high school struggled to get people to get into the college readiness track. And probably where I went to school, no more than 50% of the people got in that. The trade schools were for the other people who didn't even want to be in the, who knew they wanted to work with their hands somehow. Today, the tech schools are striving to hit 90+% placement into college of their graduates. So they're the schools people want to go to, whether they're interested in the trades or not. To offset that, what we're trying to do, what the state is trying to do, they've created what's called CTI, or the Comprehensive Training Institutes, or where we're trying to fill those machining seats or other advanced manufacturing seats with comprehensive high school students in the afternoons. And then we're trying to fill those same seats at night with adults. So we're trying to increase the flow of people to the technical training, even though they may be going to a comprehensive high school. And then we're trying to fill those seats at night to get adults who want to be career changers, whether they're unemployed, underemployed, or simply want to change careers. So the state is really putting a lot of resources into making those schools, like, not round the clock, but close to it. So that's one way we're attracting people, more people than we have seats available in the high school.
Thanks, Brian. We did have another question too about schedules that manufacturing personnel look for. Wondering if any of you have thoughts on specific schedules or flexibility in scheduling of those shifts on the manufacturing floor that works best to retain or attract employees.
I don't know that there is a single answer to a schedule that's going to attract everybody. Everybody's got a different circumstance. We just started up a third shift and had no problem staffing it. Frankly, we've hired, I don't know, I think we're at 50 people in the last 60 days or something, like 15 people last week. I think the most important thing is predictability. If you're looking at something, how do I predict my life, and am I working with you when circumstances change? Somebody may want to move from first shift to second shift to third shift, or back to first shift. You can't always do it very quickly, but circumstances are going to vary for people, and depending on what their own personal circumstances are. And so I'm not sure that there is a specific something. And frankly, part of the issue is that not everybody's going to have multiple shifts to work with. So you have to think about what you can do. And this is where being creative, as if you are a smaller business and thinking about part-time working or job shares or mother's hours or whatever it's going to be for different jobs, because we talk about the factory floor, we're not talking about inside sales or customer service or some of the office jobs that we might have. And everything's taking skills that, you didn't even need to have. If you look at the computer programs that people need to operate, some of them are they were designed by engineers for engineers. They're not exactly user friendly when you get into these big enterprise level computer systems, if that's what you have. And so you're training people not only for the factory floor, but for any job. And so being flexible and working around whatever people's life situation is going to be really important in a place like this. And I will say, on top of this, Brian was very articulate in talking about some of the issues. There's so many crises going on right now. There's a crisis in education. There's a crisis in immigration. Our immigration numbers haven't changed in years. Businesses are going to struggle as long as we deal with these issues around education. We don't do a good job in this country with apprenticeships. Other countries do better, training people to go into the trades, to be an electrician, to be a plumber, where you can make a lot of money, and it's a great job. And we don't do a great job in explaining to people how attractive these are. And all of the trades are going to struggle over time if we don't do a better job, and if we don't rethink our immigration policies at some point in time. But until then, this is where we are. And as businesses, you're going to have to work around it, because there's probably nobody on this call who can solve this problem. We have to deal with what we have. You just have to know what's going to be out there. And we're not in a political environment that gets things done very easily, if anybody hasn't noticed. And I just, by the way, I don't say this all as a political statement, but as a business person who's looking for people to work in the organization to grow the business like other people are. So I, wherever people sit on the political spectrum, I don't care. I'm just really, this is a business problem, and we look at education and availability of labor. Those are the issues that I'm really talking about here. So I don't mean to rub anybody politically the wrong way, but I do think they're important issues.
I just want to get that, Jonathan, and say that from the perspective of the communities are really important issues, education and immigration. And of course, we can talk about of the nation immigration policy, but the important thing I just pointed out is now we need to get involved in the community in a closer way. And I think we need to ask ourselves, and I totally see from my own experience in the community of Lawrence, the question is how the school system is working, how they attract students, how they keep the student until high school. The second and third generation of immigrants, and so they are replicating the behavior of the first generation, and they are U.S. citizen and they speak English, right? But some prototype of the immigrant and their family is working in that. The involvement of parents in the school, we need to encourage that and change it. And one thing that I see in Lawrence is that all the authorities and organizations, when they approach to Lawrence, they want to approach with the same thing that they do in Andover, in North Andover. And they missed the way. They have to twist, they have to understand there is a different community that need to change cultural approach, language approach, and all those things are impacting the schools, impacting the immigration. The immigration is impacting the reality of that community, and of course language. But language itself it cannot be separated of the vision of the culture. So I think that's important that for organization and authorities and business to understand that, and that's a reality that they have to be involved of.
Thanks, Walter. And in the interest of time here, and thank you for all of your questions coming in, or that came in, and thank you to the panelists so much for that informative discussion. I do want to get to our quick introductions of our other partner organizations that we have here with us today. So I'm going to share on my screen some contact information, and I'm going to hand it over to Maria from the Mass Office of Business Development to introduce herself and say what they have to offer for resources for businesses.
Thank you so much, Ian, and your team. I very much appreciate being included on this discussion today. And I'm Maria Niagara-Stefano. I'm the Northeast Regional Director for the Massachusetts Office of Business Development. And what we do, we're the Baker Administration's Executive Branch Development Agency. So in my role, I work with companies who are looking to expand in Massachusetts and looking to come to Massachusetts, and companies that are currently here and looking to expand their footprint and workforce. So we do many things, including administering the Economic Development Incentive Program that we call EDIP, as well as serving as a single point of contact for all Commonwealth of Massachusetts business resources. So, if you're hiring, if you're looking to add additional folks to your business, I'm hoping that's also coming with an expansion. And if so, I'd love for you to get in touch with me, either call me or via email or link in with me, and we can have a discussion and we can see if you would be eligible for the state tax incentive program or any other programs. And in the interest of time, again, I just wanted to say thank you so much. And also to any other providers, any of the governmental or quasi-governmental agencies or anyone on this panel, we all work together. So there's no wrong door. Get in touch with any one of us and we will get you to the other person, and we will get you resources. So thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you, Maria. And MOBD is a strong partner of ours, and I'll hand it over to Michael Bevilacqua from the Chamber of Commerce to introduce himself.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. First
It's
off,
15 hours.
thanks to the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission for hosting this great program today. Thanks to our panelists as well for that great discussion. The Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce, we have over close to 1,000 member companies in the chamber. We do a lot of traditional networking events that you'll see a lot of chamber of commerces in the area, but we work all throughout the Merrimack Valley. So that's pretty much Andover, North Andover, Methuen, Lawrence, Haverhill, Amesbury, Newburyport. And on top of those networking events that we have, more importantly, we are a connector. We can connect your company to people like Maria with the Mass Office of Business Development, with the SBA, with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. We just had Governor Baker at our program this past Monday. We work with Congresswoman Trahan and Congressman Moulton, our area state representatives, our state senators. So if you need a contact, you contact the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. We'll put you directly in contact with those organizations. If you have a question about how your business can, get around something you might have, it might be in the way, we can assist with that as well. But as I mentioned, we have 100+ programs each year. We work with a lot of these organizations on this call and throughout the state and local offices. We had all the mayors and town managers at a program 2 weeks ago in Haverhill also. So if your business needs any sort of assistance, whether it be networking or state or local level, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to assist you. And if you're interested in connecting your business with the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce, just feel free to give me a call or email. I'm happy to assist you. So thank you again for the time today. Thank you again for this great program. And as I mentioned, if we can be of any assistance at all to any of the companies on this call today, please let us know. One thing I would add also, you mentioned about how do you get kids interested in the tech schools. I know we work very closely with Whittier Tech. We all work very closely with Greater Lawrence Tech. They offer a lot of internship programs with different businesses in the area. So if your company has not contacted them about doing an internship, I'd make sure to contact them. You never know what's available. Might be able to interest them in getting them in their foot in the door, and knowing there might be a job when they graduate might be a way to get them in. So that was just one idea I had during the call. But thank you all. Appreciate it. And great job to all the panelists today.
Thanks, Michael, and thank you folks for hanging on with us for just a couple minutes as we run over. Last but not least, Martha from the Transportation Management Association, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Ian. Sorry, just trying to unmute myself. Hi, I'm Martha Levitt. I'm with the Merrimack Valley Transportation Management Association. And as a 30-year resident of Lawrence, I want to thank Jonathan and Walter in particular for their comments about cultural sensitivity, understanding this community. It's my community. It's a wonderful community for me to live in, work in, and raise my family in. About the Transportation Management Association, we are one of 15 regional TMAs in Massachusetts. We work very hard with local community and regional transportation organizations like the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission and the Merrimack Valley Regional Transit Authority, while developing our own programs and services to support our business members and our residential community members and the employees of our business members. We work to provide shuttle service development, biking and walking infrastructure improvements, and associated programming for those members. We constantly evaluate the results of our program efforts, and we coordinate very closely with our members and partners, work towards closing existing transit gaps in North Andover, Lawrence, Andover, Methuen, and Haverhill. If you have any transit needs, I'd love to talk to you, and my contact information is there. Thanks again to the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission for having us today.
Thank you so much, Martha. And thank you so much to all of our partners on the call today. Really, the big takeaway for our businesses here is that we are all here to help you with your needs. So please do not hesitate to reach out. Everyone here is a fantastic partner, as Maria was saying earlier, to help assist anyone in the Merrimack Valley that needs assistance. So do not hesitate, take down that contact information and reach out to them. So thank you all so much for taking the time for joining us today and for attending. We hope that you took something away from this event and helping you with your workforce recruitment and retention needs. We have some contact information up there as well. Myself, my colleague Nate, and Brian from the MassHire Merrimack Valley. Please feel free to reach out to us with any further questions. We want to be able to assist you. But of course, thank you all for attending and for taking the time. And we look forward to working with you on your workforce needs in the future.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.